Hit me!
Episode 317.
Oh my.
You've got to throw some cold water on this situation. Start talking about nerd stuff.
You know, nerd culture is mainstream now, so when you use the word nerd derogatorily, it means you're the one that's out of the zeitgeist.
System activate.
This is NetHeads with Will Wilkins and Trent Hunsaker. It's a tech podcast. But we are a ton cooler than your typical geek.
You guys rock.
And now, here's Will and Trent.
It's like, are they ever going to talk? That's probably what people are wondering. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the NetHeads. My name's Will.
And I'm Trent.
If you want to take part in the program, you can. One of very many ways, including all the social medias. But the most important one of them that we usually push is a little thing called Twitter. Trent, tell them about it.
Yeah. We use a hashtag, and it's NetHeads. And since there was no basketball tournament this year, it has not been overtaken by basketball fans of using NetHeads as their nom de plume or their hashtag.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
use the hashtag NetHeads and join in after the fact right now or in the future even.
In the future?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. Well, actually, I see, but I understand. I'm sorry. I got all hammy about it, but no, I get it because you could be listening to this at any time because it's a podcast. I get it.
I mean, not only 2 weeks ago did one Jen Schmidt even say that NetHeads, including the host, NetHead Prime, NetHead WW, makes the world a better place.
Oh, well, that's just beautiful. I wasn't even aware that we did that. I just thought that it let me sit down and talk to my good buddy Trent here. By the way, Sean Ryan already pointing out on the Facebooks, morning from down under. Well, g'day, sir, I guess is the appropriate response there.
That's their word, not yours, Will, so be careful.
Okay, I understand completely.
Yeah.
By the way, for this particular show, my safety word is mahalo. What is yours, Trent?
It's the Portuguese word for pineapple, which is abacaxi.
Okay, well, there's definitely no confusing that one. I think abacaxi. So if I hear that, I know it's time to back off a little.
Less hard.
Wow, I understand. I'll try and keep my podcasting to a minimum level.
Más suave, por favor.
De nada, señor. No te preocupes. ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Thank you very much.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Crap.
Me llamo T-Bone.
T-Bone, la araña, discoteca.
Discoteca.
There we go.
Yeah, it's just...
Muñeca. I used to have it all memorized at one time.
I did too, which is sad. I just wish I did, but I don't anymore.
Dude, how crazy is it that Community, during this whole work from home set that everyone's in, has had this crazy second life all of a sudden?
Well, I'm not surprised. By the way, welcome everybody to day 66 of my particular shelter in place here in Northern California.
Yes,
I don't
indeed.
know about you, Trent. What you're just basically living a lifestyle. You're not really sheltering in place, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think here. Like, I became fun employed on February 17th, I think.
Okay, so that's only
or
20. So technically speaking, that's just like 29 days ahead of me. If you want to consider it a lifestyle, you know.
Yeah.
And as such, you know, many different things happen. A lot of people, like my wife, even though recently I just had rewatched it, my wife has been rewatching New Girl, and Community just happened to drop on Netflix a couple weeks into most people shelter in place. So I'm not really surprised. And again, it's one of those shows that I just thoroughly enjoy, and really it just kind of took an absolute left turn compared to what its pilot was, even by the second episode, I think it just kind of went, I don't want to say off the rails, but it definitely established its own tone.
Well, no, I agree. And the thing that's been interesting for me, at least, has been people who it's almost a younger generation, like a generation below me and maybe 1-2 generations below that are falling in love with it. Not unlike the Z generation's love with The Office all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know. Which, by the way, is interesting because I'm sure we're going to very shortly be in a world where The Office is no longer available for any type of bingeable methodology other than the NBC HBO Max direction, I'm sure. Because I believe that conglomerate is kind of... well, no. Friends is Warner Brothers. That's why it's going to be on HBO Max. What's going to happen?
Really?
Peacock. NBC is coming out with Peacock, I believe, which will have original content. As a matter of fact, I think that is where AP Bio is returning to for season 3. Yeah.
I was so worried about that because it is a great program. See, it's interesting. So I wonder then if Viacom NBC has sold their rights, not Viacom, Comcast has sold their rights or is selling or planning to sell their rights to Hulu.
That's a great question. It's a complex time, Trent. It's a really complex time. But Community, getting back to that, was on Hulu for the longest time. That's where I went through it, and then just recently got added into Netflix. And it really is. It's an enjoyable show. I haven't seen its resurgence other than the fact that I knew it was there, and I think I saw like a few people lip syncing to the very same end credit bit we were just talking about, or tag, if you will. But I haven't really been binging much else, mainly because I just feel like I'm always working on something right now. Although, admittedly, with Disney Plus, I still really want to go back and start watching all of the Simpsons episodes.
Oh, dude, that was first week I had it. I watched. Well, I think I started at when I kind of fell off. There was like a 6-year black hole for me. So I caught up on that, and then I restarted and went all the way through. Man, it holds up. It does. And there's so many characters that you don't even know existed. One of my favorite posters I've ever had was of I don't know what season, but it came out, but it was a poster of all the different characters, and there were a couple I just happened upon. I was talking about you with it earlier. There's a guy who kind of has like a Pepe Le Pew mustache, and he only has one tagline really, and it's like the first 10 seasons, and he just pops in and he says like, "Oh dear," or "Oh my," like, and that's all he does. And they reference it like, "Hey, aren't you the guy that only says this?" He says, "Oh yes." I tried looking for his name online before we went on, and I couldn't find it to save my life. But anyway, I'm sure someone knows what I'm talking about, and will use the hashtag NetHeads. If not, live chat in Facebook right now.
Yeah, which of course, hello to David Wallace in the UK and to Ryan Connolly. Thank you very much for joining us. You know, I was thinking about it, Trent. For the longest time, I've been kind of, in many ways, adhering to an old model. In that I just don't really... I keep treating this like a live broadcast without any structure, when really it's something... It's its own unique identity. And it's interesting to see the way digital broadcast has evolved. I mean, because technically speaking, right now, you and I appear to have the exact same broadcasting capabilities utilized by The Tonight Show, The Daily Show, Late Night with Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and the like. We have the exact same broadcasting tools. But I'm also noticing, too, that there is a certain side of this that, in a way, we've kind of been ignoring, which is that when we do this, you really kind of have to have a way to interact with the people that are also viewing live, because this isn't a podcast. This isn't a radio show. This is whatever it is. Yeah. And I look forward to trying to evolve now that I've come to that realization, for whatever that means. Thankfully, I think we've kind of caught up technology-wise with all of that, in that I can now view like chat when it happens, and you're able to keep an eye on things as well, and it's really nice and convenient. I'm just amazed that there aren't more people that are doing things like live video, unless they don't want to either compete with what's out there, or like the entire universe of Twitch, which have you delved much into that?
A little bit. Yeah. Quite a bit, actually. I mean, I'm not gonna say quite a bit, but I've got a friend who is, that's kind of like what he does now. Is he's kind of running a Twitch empire esque type thing, and it is all based on the fan interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely.
Yeah, if you are not shouting out to people doing activity during it, you're doing it wrong, basically.
Which again, chicken or egg, I'm not sure, may have all come from the industry of internet sex cam workers. I'm serious about this though. Like it's what we see happening in Twitch with like, hey, thanks for the donation. Hey, thanks for this. Hey, all the shout outs and stuff we kind of saw earlier in the porn industry. So, I mean, not unlike beta and VHS and HD DVD and Blu-ray, it's whatever gets the porn industry behind it.
Yeah,
goes forward.
It's amazing how much
It is.
Technological advancement is predicated by sex. But it's true.
It's true. I mean, it's the one like desire that almost all humans have.
As they said in the third season of The Good Place, what is it about humans where every technological advancement, you first want to use it with porn? It's like, well, we're just garbage beings, and that's that. You know what, though? I understand completely what you're saying, though. You really kind of do have a point. And it's we're supposed to be a tech podcast, and this is tech oriented, so I'm really cool talking about this. But it's interesting, the different jobs, if you will, incomes or income sources that exist now. I have a 5-year-old who, of course, is obsessed with the video game Roblox. Now, before this, I had a 5-year-old who at the time was obsessed with My Littlest Pet Shops and with Minecraft. Now, there is a 10-year span between those two, and I also don't think we let Emily look at YouTube at 5. It was probably more like 8. So we're talking about a 7-year difference, but in that time, there are still these niche content creators where all they do is either on YouTube play along to a video game or create a scenario, and they kind of take you through a story or the game they're playing.
Okay.
And little kids just will watch this for hours and hours. So I'm amazed at, but can understand how that market could be created, because it could be supported by children constantly viewing and not knowing how to click out of ads. So you got a lot of ad generation happening. But at the same time, the other thing I'm noticing between all these content creators, it seems like if you're going to host a gaming channel that's oriented around something that may be for younger viewers, somehow they almost all have really freaking annoying voices, dude.
Oh, yeah, it's weird too. Like, it's interesting because like this is so opposite of what kind of like made being a radio DJ the coolest thing possible, right? Is you had like the Wolfman Jack, like all these like people who have made, you never saw them, but you heard their voices and they just sounded so cool all the time, right? And now it's the exact opposite, where like if you look cool, you can get away with just having the most annoying voice in the world.
I'm gonna do something terrible right now, Trent. Now that you've brought that up, I'm just very quickly, and I'm sorry to call somebody out by name, but I'm just going to, in Google, or in YouTube, well, still Google, I'm going to look up Micro Guardian Roblox, okay? And now you can sample exactly what I am subjected to every time my child wants to watch something. Let me just get over the ad.
Sure. Everyone's got to pay for it somehow.
In today's episode of Roblox, we move into a brand new house with a bunch of strangers I've never met before, where there's a Roblox purge happening, and all of these people are breaking into our house, and they're all led by one man named Scary Larry. Make sure to watch to the end. It was real scary, and now we need to board up windows, because if we don't do that, then Scary Larry's gonna come with his perps again.
By the way, I know my kid has watched that particular video, but my favorite part of doing this is, okay, now let me just cut over to Trent, and your face pretty much said it all, I think. That's really, really selling it.
His name should be Scary Larry.
I completely agree. I think it's Ryan, though. So anyway, but I'm not here to tear down content creators, because there's this amazing diversification where almost anything can have an audience. So it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're passionate about it, you enjoy it. I think that kind of sells it to people. But you've got that. But then you do have this other niche market of the Twitch world. And so you're mentioning, somebody that's presiding over basically a gaming Twitch empire, I'm going to guess?
Yeah, uh-huh.
And there is just, that part amazes me even more. Actually, it doesn't. That makes at least a little more sense, because like you said, there's fan interaction, there's community interaction.
Right.
With my daughter watching these videos, that's nothing but one-way consumption. That's literally somebody sitting there watching somebody else play a game. I can't wait for 10 years from now to play it back for her and just say, this is what you used to watch all the time.
Yeah, remember when this was your jam?
Yeah, and then, she'll bleed from her ears much the same way we have. But the whole Twitch thing I'm also amazed by, too, especially since I've been kind of sitting on the sidelines as kind of a participant de facto in rebroadcasting content. The whole aspect of like Jason Mewes on Twitch. So what I'm saying is I've been sitting here and I've been able to see this from the sidelines, the way people interact and how quick and easy it has built-in tools as well to I don't want to say bait people, but encourage people to interact and gift and spend money.
Yeah, there's it's not unlike gambling, right? Like there's a reason you set up your bots so that when someone donates, there's a certain sound that you get to have or whatever, and you get it certain perks or whatever. It's buying into that reward system that we all crave.
Yeah, exactly. I like to think of it as the gerbil feeder is what I think of it as, because it's just you do the reward, the treat comes out. You do the task, the treat comes out. But still, at the same time, because of that, I would scroll through Twitch, because naturally, I dabbled early on. And by the way, the funniest thing about this whole shelter-in-place thing has been the aspirations of oh, you know what, I could do so much stuff. Not that my lifestyle really changed, but it's
right.
There'll be more people at home, so I should take advantage of this. But then you discover that, there are other priorities in life. I have, as I'm sitting in here podcasting, but I have children that I should be spending time with. There are things to do around the house. So then you're like, okay, well, you know what? I'm not really a quote unquote content creator or aggregator. I have aspirations. I just like doing this.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Exactly. But there are other people that in going through Twitch, they may not even necessarily game, or they just lackadaisically game, but somehow they're supporting themselves through that avenue. And to me, that is just incredible. I wish something like that had existed 10 to 15 years ago.
Well, I mean, yes, and I would give a slash to that, in that Twitch in particular, I think those guys, the ones who do it well, are some of the hardest workers out there. As far as, at least, and maybe I'm just super picky about who I follow, but Pay Money Wubby, he that's what he's doing. That's his life now. And he's working so freaking hard, putting out new content, and he's also got to be a master marketer at the same time, right? Knowing what to cover at the right times, you're learning media cycles, whether it be pop culture or certain video game niches, anything along those lines. To do it and to be self-sustaining outside of your mom's house has got to be so freaking hard. Like you just never stop working, I would guess.
I I personally feel I would be crushed trying to. Well, obviously, I would as a 49-year-old bald guy in glasses. I have. Well, actually, I may have the cleavage to be able to try and gain some traction, but
Sure.
I certainly don't have the gaming skill. Although watching Jay and Kevin playing Mall Brawl makes me realize maybe I should take a look at a Steam account, because I could definitely play a game like that.
Or the beloved game for Sega Genesis fans of Streets of Rage. They just did a new Streets of Rage that came out a few weeks ago, Streets of Rage 4. I mean, I was a Sega fan, right? But I knew that it was a ripoff of Final Fight, Capcom's Final Fight, the arcade game, and that Final Fight's a better game. It's a better franchise, which gave us eventually, Street Fighter. That being said, dude, it is classic, just brawling action that they've added just a few little tweaks to that make it faster and a little bit better. And I'm telling you, man, it's a ton of fun. And like you feel like you're 16 again and kicking trash, and you're really good at it. And maybe someone who's, I don't know, 16 now would be like, you have to use your hands? That's a baby's toy.
Back to the Future 2. Nice call.
Thank you.
By the way, Ryan Connolly shouting out, I enjoy hearing Kevin and Ralph shouting out NetHeads on HBO podcasts. Yeah, that's cool too. Which is part of the reason why I've been like, behind the scenes, I've been just like chomping at the bit. Like, hey Trent, how you doing? Hey Trent, how you doing?
Hey, man.
Hey, buddy.
Do you love me still?
Do you want to do a podcast? He's never seen Frozen, so he doesn't know what that is. But
I don't know. I was going to say, Will, this is an original tune. I think this could go somewhere.
No. I bet I did do that once. I sent him a message that was like the entire first verse of "Do you want to build a snowman?" but or podcast oriented.
Totally lost on me.
Which my wife is like, "Oh, you can rhyme for him, but I don't get any new poems." Sorry, honey. Valid point. Valid point. A little uncomfortable. Where was I going? Oh, anyway, we've actually been getting some attention because of the supporting role that I've been playing. And so, yeah, we've gotten plugs on Hollywood Babylon. We've gotten plugs on Ralph's weekly cocktail party with his premiere club. We've gotten from Kevin and Jay on the Twitch stream.
These are plugs like on-air mentions, not plugs like you would find in one of the aforementioned workers' Amazon.
I'm going to stop you right there. Okay. Which, by the way, and this is going to derail the conversation as well, probably my favorite term that is used by both Peter Parker and Tony Stark in the MCU films. Because when we first meet Peter, I think in Civil War, at one point he says, I'm going to stop you right there. And then there's another point later on, either in that movie or one of the other MCU films. Oh, no, it was Tony Stark, where Ant-Man is reciting like the time heist concept. He's like, I'm going to stop you right there. They keep using that term very effectively, but it's no surprise because those are both written by the same people. Anyway, it's just one of those little things that I get giddy about and I enjoy. Anyway, yeah, we've been getting mentions on air, which is great. When you're doing a podcast, that's really great to get attention. But, when you're us, it's kind of like begging for a free billboard to show nothing. So thanks again for joining us. Getting back to the Twitch thing. That's the one thing that where I was going with this. I can't conceptualize what I would do to be able to continuously generate enough content in order to have a sustaining model. I mean, you look at the kind of funny guys. They too, I think they have like an entire Patreon experience, and they're doing original content, and they're constantly producing live shows. Which I guess when that's your, at the same time, if that's your business and you have a diverse cast like they do, I can imagine that might be a little bit easier because you have your daily shows and you're just building content. But for somebody that is not as popular as a Ninja or somebody else, if you will, obviously you're going to have to really put in the effort. And using a parable as well, there are a lot of things that we could do to be pushing and promoting NetHeads that we just don't do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the number one adage in sales is you lose 100% of the sales you don't ask for. So if we're not doing anything to extend our brand or what have you. What are we really doing? And I would love to sort of alleviate many ways the burden on you by being able to come up with some content that I can generate in a way that's as rewarding as our conversations together. The problem is that's, first of all, very hard, so kudos to you. Let me rephrase. It's very difficult.
Yeah, doing anything solo is so hard, and being engaging. Again, why a tip of the hat to all of those Twitch people that make it good.
Yeah.
That actually draws you in. And again, maybe I'm not the right demographic, and that's why I'm only drawn to a very specific group. But he passed away. But one of the greatest Twitch streamers of all time, a game reviewer, Total Biscuit. I mean, and I get he wouldn't be like the teenagers fan because he had opinions, and maybe that's what I'm more drawn to, is kind of the podcasting style mixed in with the Twitch stuff, right? So that I feel like I'm being edified, or at least having my knowledge augmented, and not just like, scary Larry.
Don't. I will kill you. Yeah, and I don't even mean it in the solo creator way, because like you said, that the Twitch environment is a unique beast, but there is still a level of interactivity that goes on. So if I had something, I could easily do the Twitch experience. I'm not saying I'd be successful at it whatsoever. That's not what I'm implying, okay? Ask my wife, I can talk forever about nothing. So that isn't an issue. The only thing I would need is something that would be visually stimulating to people in order to that I could also actively do in between the times where there may not be interaction in the beginning. Because I think I finally come to a point, Trent. It's only taking me, I'd say more than a decade of content creation. I've finally come to the acceptance point where I need to stop looking at numbers. I need to stop caring about subscribers, because the reason why I do this is because I enjoy it. And so just enjoy it and then let everything else happen. So I could go on Twitch now and not care about the anxiety of seeing 0 viewers. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Right? As long as I'd have something else to do, which is why I'm almost considering getting a Steam account and maybe playing like Mall Brawl, just so it's something I could do.
Yep.
And then I can work with the interactions and just go with it.
Well, and I think that's you're hitting on what I think there are. I'm sure there's more, but for me, I would lump people in the that realm of, and I'm sorry that I'm marginalizing you guys all, because I know myself being a pseudo millennial, we all hate labels as being labeled millennials. The irony there is that there's people who have content. Right. So you're watching it because of what's being shown to you. And then you have personalities. Right. And they're totally different. Right. So I would say my neighbor here in Utah has a very successful YouTube channel called Cody's Lab. Right. And he's a great guy. I talk to him every week. Super nice dude. I wouldn't necessarily call him a personality, right? He's not your ninja. But the content he puts up is so cool and it's so intriguing. That's what keeps people coming back, right? And it's very, very few are the people that can blend that too, where they have a personality mixed with actual content that's also intriguing. Top of my mind, I can only really think of as Bolter, Boltr, on YouTube, if you ever check him out. But yeah, it's and so what you're saying makes total sense, right? If you're able, if you want to just talk and like hang out, you don't have to have anything specific to be showing, right? Like the few times that I've ever done like Street Fighter Twitch streams, my face cam is usually a dog. I'll put it on. I'll put it on a sleeping dog.
Don't. Oh, okay. I was like, don't judge yourself that harshly.
Hey now.
Come on, buddy. You're a handsome man.
I'll put the face cam on a sleeping dog, and randomly people will be like, "What the hell is that?"
Although that sounds like it could be something that would be fun, like if you and I could play a game and Twitch it together.
And we just have cams on our dogs, and we call it "Let Sleeping Dogs Play" game. Boom.
You just put that idea out there. 10 people have already stolen it, just like that.
Even though I'm sure there's like 15 people already doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Well, I know that if everything were working correctly in here, one of the things I could also do would be able to cut to a vector display. So instead of a dog, I could just have a digital robot sitting next to an R2-D2 with Snake's Plissken right there in the corner. So I do have these alternative things I could cut to, which would be handy as well if you didn't want to be seen on screen. But I kind of think that actually what would be best is, because this plays to both things. So it lets you do the dog thing, and then I'm there to just try and be the pure attention whore that I am on camera. But anyway, speaking of which, I want to make just a quick announcement, kind of in the realm of content creation. Now, I'm not saying this to brag in any way, because really, when it comes to what goes on in that particular platform, which I'm sure people are tired of hearing me talk about, but this past week, I apparently have surpassed not only 10,000 followers on TikTok, I've now got over 12,000 followers on TikTok. So now I'm finally going to bring you home for all this TikTok talk. Are you ready for what it really is, Trent?
Please, Will. What does it mean?
Here's my grand plan. This is what I've been building towards, because like when my wife asks, why do you care how many followers you have? And I finally understand why. It all kind of came together because somebody sent, for some reason, and I'm taking advantage of it. They didn't identify themselves, but somebody else sent another vector. Because if you look at NetHead WW on Twitter, the majority of it that's successful is vector content, if you will. So at one point I said, you know what? When we hit 10,000, I'm going to give away a vector.
A vector, yeah.
Which I'm going to. So, that's, if you want to follow on TikTok, there's a reason. If you want to download TikTok, I guess there's a reason. But here's the grand plan, because this is the only reason why I think I really did care. It's the grand experiment. I've said many times that the thing I love to do, the thing that I enjoy, is the podcast. Everything I do, if you've seen me tinker with anything online, the Patreon, everything is in service of the podcast. Although, anyway, it's all been in service of the podcast. So, this week, the reason why I was also very anxious to record something with you is because I wanted something new. Hopefully, it would be good, but,
Beggars can't be choosers.
Let's not be picky. So the idea is to see if any of this can translate into something else. Of those 12.3 thousand followers, of course, I found out you have the ability to get analytics if you go pro. And of those, here's the important part, okay? So this will be some really weird translation if it does happen. 15% of that audience, I'm not even saying my audience, that audience, is in the Philippines. In the past 48 hours, we have jumped with the United States moving into the second position of 12% of the audience, which is great news because now it pushes Brazil, India, and Indonesia down to 12, 9, and 8 respectively. And then I guess it's just scattershot around the other things. But now that's great news that of the 12,268 current followers, 12% of them are in the U.S. That's good news because... let's just use 10%. 10% of 12,000 is?
1,200?
Exactly. So.
Well, that was a total shot in the dark, dude, but I came out ahead.
Yeah, you just I think with the 10%, you just lop off a zero and then whatever.
I just got accepted to state school, Ma.
Yeah. There you go. Well, you're doing better than the public education system with me. Why do you think I asked instead of giving the answer? And at one point when you said 1,200, I'm like, sounds good.
Sure, yeah.
Why not?
Right.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give that away, but there are going to be, I even say it on the video, certain provisos, certain quid pro quos. Because, I'm giving...
my!
Don't do that when you're not on camera.
Sorry.
So I'm going to tell the TikTok audience, this is the giveaway, and here are the things you have to do. You have to go to the link in my bio, click on the Instagram, follow the YouTube, and comment on the latest video, I love Vector, right? So there we go. And then finally, subscribe to the podcast. Of all those things, the ironic part is the least trackable is the subscription to the podcast. But if we see the numbers go up from that, then we know it can translate. At which point, then I'll actually care more about making content on that platform and continuing it.
Sure.
Because this is the only, I mean, like, because I did some serious introspection. I'm like, really, why do I care about this? Why am I doing this? I mean, don't get me wrong. There is something very rewarding in creating something and anyone liking it. The fact that there are over 12,000 followers of that account, I am deeply appreciative of, because it means that 12,000 people gave enough of a crap to click one extra little thing on the screen. And I don't minimize that, because that's a big thing. And it's generated over 1/3 of a million likes. So people have taken the time to... And more importantly, I've provided something of entertainment to something. In a way, I've provided value. And the fact that even like my minimal videos get 700 views, that's amazing to me. And I'm thankful for it. I don't mean to minimize the TikTok audience, but as a 49-year-old bald guy, I'm not exactly the biggest draw on the platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Much in the same way that you're not going to see me become a cam girl. You're not gonna...
Well, hey, don't sell yourself short. There's a niche for everyone, Will.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So, but also it's open to everybody. Anybody that's a follower, subscribes on the Instagram, do that. The only problem is those links are originating on the TikTok profile. Dave Wallace is laughing. All I got to do is comment on a YouTube video. That's what Ryan Connolly says. So he's got the world dialed in, it appears.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Does that mean Ryan Connolly is secretly on TikTok and is following my account and I don't know?
Hey, don't dox him.
Okay, I won't. I'll let it go.
Come on, man.
I'll let it go. I'll let it go. Speaking of which, too, in talking about extending your brand and brand awareness and everything else, like one of the things we don't really plug in the show, like it's not even in the cute little lower thirds that I've made. We have NetHeads on air, which is basically like a repeater point for all of the media of audio and video, mostly, right?
It's your one-stop shop.
Yeah, gives you a destination for everything. Funniest thing, though, Trent, I say everything's in service of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So if you have something that's offering a podcast, what do you think is like one of those basic things you should have on the site?
The podcast?
That's a good one. That's a good start.
Yeah.
Yes, you'd want to have the podcast. Now,
and then second, I don't know, a way to regularly get it.
Oh, you mean like a subscribe button per se? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We've had NetHeads on air up for like what, 3-4 years, maybe?
Oh, at least that.
How is it neither one of us noticed that there was no subscribe to the subscribe to the
Well,
podcast?
Will, I'd like to think that well, okay, here's what I'll say. You're an expert in compliance, and there was no document outlining the compliance necessitating a subscribe button. And I have worked in web design and just never noticed.
I'll take it.
I was trying to get somewhere, and it's like, shit, nope, I got nothing.
That's fine, man. I'll take it. It's good. I just thought it was really funny when I had this epiphany, because we got a notice from Loot Crate. They're like, "Hey, do you want to do sponsorship again?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I was going through that, and so when I was looking at all of the good stuff and dead stuff on the site, because I then realized, wait a second. There's no way to subscribe. Although I will tell you that from my experience with supporting other podcasts and other platforms, I, to this day, am still amazed at how many people don't use or consume podcasts in the way that ideally delivery was intended.
Yep.
I guess that's a sensitive way to put it.
Yep.
Where do you think I'm going with that, Trent?
I don't know where you're going with it, but anecdotally, dude. So for Christmas, I got my mom a Spotify year-long subscription and a Bluetooth stereo. And bless her heart, like every other week, she asks me if she can listen to podcasts on Spotify.
Well, you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have to walk her through the process. But like, I mean, like, Spotify not designed originally to be a podcatcher, right?
Which, by the way, you can find us on Spotify.
Oh, nice segue there.
There you go. You can find NetHeads on Spot. As a matter of fact, if you have your Spotify account connected, and we were indexed in a way that it would be understandable, you could say something cool like play. I'll demonstrate, but not with our podcast because it wouldn't work. But like I could say, computer, play Smodcast on Spotify.
Getting Smartcast from Spotify.
See?
Playing the latest episode. Smart Entrevista. Felipe Consorcio.
Okay, Alexa, stop. Or
Computer enhance.
stop.
Computer enhance.
Yeah, I had to be all nerdy and like use computer as the trigger word here in the office. Yeah. And the funniest part is I like go all over the house saying different shit to different inanimate objects. Now it's like computer crap. No. Ryan Connolly saying, how do you use an RSS feed? Asking for a friend. That's exactly what where I was going with that. The original conceptualization of podcasts, and the reason why they're called a podcast is because, because of the guy who created the concept. But you use an RSS feed, you put the RSS feed into a podcast catcher, and then the idea is it's automatically, as long as that device is connected to the internet, it'll get the new content, bring it to your device so that you can then play it. But what I'm surprised by is the large number of people that don't know that, or they don't want to do that, and they rely on downloading media to their computer or what have you for consumption.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because I mean it's the most simple delivery form out there. It stands for really simple what's the other S? Stream.
Something like that.
Yeah, RSS. And it is the most basic of pieces of code where it's basically just crawling for text and a link for the source download. And for some reason it's gotten so much more difficult. Well, I think for consumption when it really shouldn't. And maybe that's because it took so long for there to be a good alternative to iTunes, aka the worst software ever made.
Yeah, I can't comment because the one I majorly still use is the Podcasts app on an iPhone.
But do you know what I mean? I know many of our listeners, good friends of ours, sing the acclaims of the Zune and how great its podcasting was, or its podcatcher and everything was. But like outside of iTunes, it took so long before others caught up to where it worked really well. That didn't involve copying an RSS feed and plugging it into your actual podcatcher itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been of recent events. It's been a really interesting learning experience to kind of get back in touch with the fact that it is still a technology that's not easily understood. Yeah. And even though there are alternatives, there are also Google Play Music is winding down, and they're switching over to YouTube service. And I don't know if that impacts the Google Play podcast portion of things yet. I don't know what that translates to, but you know, there are still people that don't even know that Google for a while would support it. And their podcast app, too. I don't know what they were thinking because they don't support private RSS feeds. So if a podcast app doesn't support that, then if you get a podcast from something like a boutique or custom service like the Ralph Report or that Kevin Smith Club,
right,
you're going to have challenges. But still, you're right. I mean, there are people that still don't understand that you can just use an app on your phone and it'll automatically arrive. Or maybe they don't want to because of the data. I don't know.
Yeah, but everyone's got Wi-Fi now, I swear.
Americo. Oh my gosh. Voice of NetHeads past Americo saying they should rename it OK Boomer Cast. Am I right? See, that's the kind of heat he used to bring when he sat in as we were a trio here. That was nice. Yeah, I'm still shocked at the number of people that aren't aware how you can get a podcast and they rely on downloading it. It still shocks me. But, again, it's at the same time, to me, it really is shocking because of how mainstream, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, podcasts have become. Because it seems like every major brand or every major star, definitely every comedian, has got a podcast.
Yeah, I think brands have got to the game a little late. Definitely your comedians, some of the first people on the ball, because it's how you work your material, right? It's workshopping that way. But I see, just this year, the WWE, who has, breaks its arm jerking itself off on how good it is at social media and how many awards it wins in new media development, just barely started its own set of podcasts this year, 2020. Like, kind of behind the game if you're at that forefront.
Yeah,
almost like, is it too late? I wonder.
Well, I would say yes and no, because similarly, NBC, I think, only recently kind of embraced it, because in between the second and third season of The Good Place is when The Good Place, the podcast hosted by my personal friend, Mark Evan Jackson.
Also featured in this latest season of Dead to Me.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
I only got through 10 minutes of the first episode when I realized, I can't watch this. My kid's in the room.
Gosh, I love that television program so much.
Yeah, well, it's another Netflix original, which to me, I feel, they renewed it for a season 2, which was great, but I just feel like they are flat out neglecting it. I only knew that it was out because I think I follow Christina Applegate on Twitter.
And I only knew it was out because Vulture did an article on how weird it is and so good. Why is it so good for being so weird? Like the premise wise.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't know what we're talking about, not going to tell you. Go watch the first 2 seasons, go watch the first 2 seasons on Netflix. Really enjoyable show. Don't know how they didn't. Anyway, good to hear that he's on Dead to Me. Yeah. He's not really my personal friend, folks. But NBC.
He's from everything.
Yeah, exactly. Getting back to the point, NBC only seems to recently be embracing the concept. But it seems like every time I turn around, there's another big name or another big brand, which in a way makes me feel good for the industry. And if I were to care about subscription numbers, then I would probably be concerned, because it's another, I don't want to say encroachment on the podcast market, but it's further diversifying it. But the more mainstream that you've got present within the market, the more the tiny voices are going to be competing, much in the way that mom and pop shops have to compete against big box stores, right? So, but at the same time, again, if you're sitting down to do a podcast hoping to get rich, don't. If you're sitting down to do a podcast because you love it, then you're golden. Like, because seriously, it took my wife saying that to me last night, because I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And she's like, what do you care about the numbers? You do it because you enjoy it. And I'm like, that's true. I enjoy talking to Trent. I have a good time. So maybe by the time I am 50 years old, I'll have reached a certain level of enlightenment. Maybe. I don't have a lot of faith in it, but it's possible. Nah, man, I'm going to go. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Dad jokes.
They're terrible. They are horrible. So, Trent, what's going on in your life, by the way? We've been rambling on about a lot of broadcast. I'm sorry. I still get fascinated by the fact that you and I right now are broadcasting with the same level that Jimmy Kimmel does. I don't know why.
Well, technology, yes. The writing power and charisma, no.
No. I have more charisma and no writers. You have got more facial hair.
Yes, I do have quite a bit of facial hair. Got a haircut the other day. My barber, she decided to open back up. Utah never really said no barbershops. I have quite a few friends that work in the industry who did decide to close. Thank you to them for not being selfish, and preying on the weak. Yeah, I just got a haircut. That was neat. Been watching a lot of TV. Have gotten really good at Counter-Strike death matches, to where I'm usually in the top 3 almost every game I play now. So that's fun. That is neat.
Well, that sounds like something you could be playing on Twitch.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I think in many ways, if it hadn't already been territory explored by like the Terrible Gamer series that Conan does,
Oh yes.
I think that would have been something fun for you and I to do. Would be go through and like take a game that you're really good at, and then try and introduce me playing to it.
Yeah.
But that road has already been traveled, if you will.
Thanks a lot, Conan. Emmy Award winner.
You've also been accomplishing a lot of home improvements or your tasks around the place, right?
Yeah. Been working in the lawn a whole bunch. Got a load sitting in my trailer ready to go to the dump. Just about ready to spray for all my broadleaf weeds, which is great because it kills pretty much everything that's not grass, including morning glory. So
Wow. Although
Yeah,
I will say, if you have any friends that have birds, if you do see that you're growing dandelion greens, then they would love those.
like birds as like house pets?
Yeah, definitely. Not like
Really?
Wait, what other way are people? Well, I guess chickens, but like yeah.
Well, I just didn't know like that birds ate dandelion greens.
America is,
Not native to the United States, mind you.
didn't know that. America by the way, not America, bringing the heat, saying that's pretty good with the 2 other guys that are still playing Counter-Strike.
Hey, now for a game that's 20 plus years old, it's doing pretty well.
Dude, there are people that are sitting there legit playing EverQuest on
Yeah.
Twitch. And like I was just hopping around. I'm like, oh God, is anybody doing EverQuest? I look and there's one guy and I'm like, how does he have 100 viewers playing this old ass game?
And there are still professional Age of Empires 2 players out there.
No way.
Absolutely. My roommate is kind of a personality in the realm.
Oh wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
In a whole boutique realm, if you will.
Yeah. Really though.
Very interesting. Yeah, glad to hear that you're going to be spraying. That's wonderful news. Also interesting, I thankfully with all of the shelter in place stuff, I have a haircut that's very easy to maintain as long as I have razors.
Right.
Although, like my wife's hairdresser did send an at-home maintenance kit. That's all I'll say, that we were able to use. So that was a great way for her to come up with a way to generate revenue, even though she couldn't be open. But, I don't know, man. I don't mean to get into the heavy stuff, but
Sure.
I think, because we are going through this experience, it is something important to talk about in a way. And like yesterday, I was looking at the news and I was really, really disappointed to see things happen. Like I think it was both news about a Georgia church and a Texas church that had reopened, and now they're stopping services because either families or the actual like heads of church had been affected by COVID-19. And it's I just don't understand why there are people that aren't taking it seriously. But Utah has a different perspective, right?
No, not really. Utah wants to get back to work. Let's get rid of this fake news and
Okay.
get back to work.
Now, let's explore this for just a second, because this is the thought that I keep coming back to. Okay?
Yes.
I mean, other than the fact that I'm terrified by how much of the country is willing to ignore science, but completely and lovingly embrace conspiracy theories. Let's take that. We'll set it aside for a second. Also, Leroy Velasquez pointing out Game Pass added Age of Empires Definitive Collection on PC. Just FYI.
There you go.
The thing that I am I keep thinking about, because you keep seeing things in the news about how Trump is urging states to reopen, and other members of the administration are saying it's important the country reopens. But the question that I keep coming back to, especially when you see things like the services happening and getting shut down in Georgia and Texas church, these churches that these things happened in, the thing I keep coming back to is, regardless of when you reopen and how you reopen, how successful is that truly going to be when you have to contend with the flip side of the people, where they're going to be like my family, where we're not going to re-embrace restaurants or movie theaters or public gatherings or anything too soon. So, I mean, I think that I can understand the motivation for the push. I wish the push wasn't there. But regardless, wow, I just came to an epiphany, though. We're going to see like two different levels of if let's pre-qualify it. If it's not fake news, okay, Trent, let's work with a hypothetical. If it's not fake news and there's actual science here and it's highly transmittable and people can be essentially a carrier, in case you're wondering what asymptomatic means, think of somebody with the disease who isn't affected and doesn't get sick, yada, yada, yada. If that's not fake news, then we're going to have basically two different sides of this. We're going to have an economy that attempts to reboot and then is going to get impacted by health concerns and probably shut down again, or you're going to get, well, that's it. You're going to get, there's going to be almost two classes of people, if you will, those that are getting sick and those aren't. And in the meantime, the economy's still going to be screwed, right?
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's Trent's cough, is inner monologue going, wow, why are we getting into such heady shit?
No, it's not that. It's again, as the tyrant emperor Leto II of House Atreides articulated, that humankind cannot think in terms of generations. Economies, they don't boom in a month. They don't boom in a year. They don't, guess what, folks? They don't boom over 4 years, if that's tied to anything. Nudge, nudge.
No, what are you getting at?
It's like, it's long-term spending and saving and prioritization for personal interests and incentives for the government. And so whatever short-term possible gains that can be made personally, they will never outweigh the long-term assured gains for the collective. But it's not how humans think, right? It's the genes only care that they're alive long enough to pass on to the next generation, and so it's a me first mentality, which is why nationalism seems to always spring up, because it feels good to think so selfishly.
Well, the biggest concern I have, because I'm not one of those people that is like, oh, well, I hope this happens because it'll prove me right kind of thing, especially not when the stakes are as high as they are. But when it comes down to it, capitalism, republicanism, democratism, what have you, my biggest concern through all of this is that we end up having a population attrition, basically to Darwinism now, and that's not what I want to see things come to. So,
right,
like, I just hope people can see past what I really consider in many cases to be almost masterful political manipulation. I hope they can see past that to at least make the decisions they feel are best to keep themselves as safe as possible. I think that's the cleanest way to put it. For example, when my daughter and I go out to take the dogs for a walk, I wear a mask. I'm not required to wear a mask when I go out to walk the dogs. If I were going into an essential business like a grocery store, hospital, that doctor's office, you wear a mask. And mind you, the mask is not protecting me from anything. That's the way the science works. The only thing it does is, if I were asymptomatic and I were wearing a mask, then if I were to cough and sneeze, I've greatly reduced my ability to transmit.
Right.
So I'm not gaining any safety wearing them on. The reason why I wear them on the walk isn't because it's required. I do it because I honestly am sending a message saying, I'm wearing a mask. Please keep in mind to stay 6 feet away, because the safety of my family is greater than my concern for looking stupid with this piece of fabric on my face. Right? That's what it is. Scott Cadoret, or Cadoret, I don't know how to pronounce it, on Facebook says, lots of Darwin Awards going out, gonna break that site. Oof. Unfortunately, I think that's true. And it really is unfortunate, because it's just, like, I've seen people like joke about, when things like this come up, oh, they want to have church services. You know what? Let's just let this run right out. Nudge, 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 ha ha, vote blue. That's not funny, because lives are on the line.
Yeah,
and
that's someone's daughter they're talking about.
Up there on the stage grinding. Oh, wait, no, sorry. That's not what you were talking about. Sorry to get heady for a second, but yeah, I just kind of want to emphasize that point. Really, just please try and make the best decisions possible. I personally have 3 different masks now, probably going for a 4th. Also, I do have all those buff things that I could also pull up over my face. So
I'm sorry, buff?
Yeah, it's a tubular piece of expandable fabric.
Oh, fabric. Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
Are you thinking of a Fifi?
I don't know, but it with a name like Buff,
it's got to be good.
I wonder if it's on your Amazon wish list.
We don't talk about my Amazon wish list.
Ooh la la.
We don't talk about it at all. You know what sucks is we're going into the Memorial Day weekend, and I officially had to retire.
That's why
my
the
grill.
Flags are up.
Say what now?
I didn't know the holiday. I wondered why all the flags were up.
I've been walking around. I'm seeing all these American flags everywhere. I don't know why.
That's it. That's why. Okay, thank you. Sorry to derail there. It just made a lot more sense. My life did now.
Americo saying people's life is greater than people's need to get a haircut. Well, it should be. Have you been tempted on wearing a superhero helmet or mask out in public? Yes, I have. I've considered going to the ridiculous extreme. As a matter of fact, Odin Abbott, friend of the show, his YouTube channel Odin Makes, he recently made a Bane mask from The Dark Knight Rises. And the way he crafted it, he specifically did it so that he could stick a piece of cloth on the inside if he wanted to, and it would be compliant with social distancing and mask guidelines that are out. And also, actually, I posted a picture of it on my Instagram. I don't think I did it on the NetHeads one, and it's not here in the office, but I've got one that I received through the Legion M shop that is the Hannibal Lecter restraint mask.
Oh geez.
So I've got that one, and actually just recently I received my Movies one. See, I can have the the golden calf on me. I'm eating it. That's just what you want on your face.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I'm eating it. Yeah, it's weird times, but yeah, it's the Memorial Day weekend, so it's going to be
okay.
And that's exactly what I said too. Okay, so basically I'm not and mind you, I'm thankful I have a job, but okay, so I'm just not logging on to work Monday morning. It's not like there are people around here though. I've seen lots of trailers getting stocked up and loaded. So there are people that will be going out and camping. I'm just assuming they're going to be socially distancing camping.
Oh yeah, which is easy to do when you're camping, right? Because everyone stinks already. No one is next to each other. It's a great time to go be miserable with your family. Camping.
Exactly. Let's take all the convenience of being home, throw it out the window. You're not a big fan?
Oh, I hate it.
Oh.
Not that I hate it. I love being outdoors. I love going and spending a day in the a day's drive from 7 national parks is my home, but I want to sleep in my bed, man. I want to take a shower at night.
I can respect that.
You know?
Leroy Velasquez pointing out that you should make a mankind face mask.
Oh, now that's a good idea. That's a wrestling thing.
Here's another. Yeah, I know. I get it. Mick Foley was Mankind, right?
Yes, yeah, Cactus Jack.
There you go. See, I know some things. I know some things about things. America pointing out, since I moved to Australia, I've been required by law to change my name to Australia. I should have seen that coming. I should have seen that coming. Hey, Trent, did you hear the news that comic books are back?
Finally.
Now, what's your take on all this? Having been a former proprietor, I'm sure you had. Let's just be friendly. Let's take your diamond distributing qualms aside for a moment. Okay, we're not going to get a comment if we do that, is what I guess.
Well, here's what I think. Diamond has shown how incapable they are with this whole problem. And not just out of not being able to get books out, because that's a real thing, right? Like, and worrying about people's safety, this, that, and the other. The problem is that it was a flawed. Their inner workings have been flawed since well before this, and this was just the hiccup that brought everything to an emergency brake halt. If the online company that sends me dog food, which is extremely popular and is sending out to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of homes daily, weekly, can still deliver on a delayed time, but not having to just like, oh, we don't know what's going on, stop. Then you would think someone dealing in print publications could do so. So my biggest fear now is that Diamond has shown their ineptitude sufficiently that it is if I were in charge of the print side of Marvel, the print side of IDW, of DC Comics, there are a lot of other companies that specialize in print and mailing directly from the printer, i.e. R.R. Donnelley. Check pretty much every piece of mail you get that comes from, whether it be Google or the IRS sometimes. Like, it's all done by R.R. Donnelley. They are printers and shippers. That's what they do. This is, on top of it, they print all the comic books already, R.R. Donnelley, right?
Oh.
So this is to me, this is their last straw. If I were in charge, in charge of distribution for Marvel, I would be like, let's cut out this extra middleman and deliver directly from R. Donnelley.
See, I view it as a different thing, but maybe I don't understand the nature of the problem. I just viewed it as them suspending things because we were in a situation where the places these would ordinarily be purchased through weren't going to be open. That's where I viewed it as. And also, potentially the production could have been impacted in the manner of meeting safety guidelines. In other words, you can't have a certain number of employees within a certain confined space. They've got to be a certain distance away from each other, so on and so forth. So that's how I viewed the issue. Personally, my biggest fear when all this happened was just what was it going to do to the comic book industry, because I think there is even though digital delivery is extremely convenient and, of course, not doing any favors to the comic book shop industry, local comic book shops should still be something that we have, because there is something to be said about tangibly having a comic book in your hands and being able to scroll through it at your leisure, or realize, oh, the story just skipped because I turned too many pages. That's part of the experience, and yeah. It's one of the ways that you could easily pass on something you enjoy. So,
absolutely. I mean, it's the same reason that while record shops have waned, vinyl records is now the highest selling form of media, right? Over CDs now, right? They're selling more records than they are like LPs, vinyl, than CDs, and it's because of the experience that you get when you go into a specialized shop. You what do you mean you've never heard Echo and the Bunnymen? That's perverse. Well, here, you got to check this record out, or something like that, right? It's the same thing with a comic book shop. The problem with this is now So let's take Utah, for example, right? Stores could remain open. My good friend Dave at Dr. Volts worked very hard to make sure that he was following very safe guidelines. He set up a curbside service so you could still come pick up your hold. He'd bring out the comics, no different than like a drive-through, food place or anything along those lines. But they just stopped sending him books. The flip side to that being that with Diamond's the way it's set up, if you were closed and they were still sending, you still had to pay for those books that came in. Because there's nothing given on credit from Diamond. It's all COD. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, I guess.
It's just been interesting the way that industry kind of rolled into what it became in the way of distribution and everything else. I know it's and look, mind you, even though we have the benefit of being on Kevin Smith's network, I also recognize that the owner of Diamond was, or the CEO of Diamond was a guest on Fat Man Beyond, and it was a really great appearance.
Steve Jeppy, check it out.
Yeah, and it's really enjoyable. It's just that Trent has certain opinions, specifically because he was a small local comic book shop owner, and the model of business is something that is extremely cost prohibitive for somebody that is attempting to spin up a comic book business, because you have to make a certain commitment regardless of what you may even anticipate your initial sales on. Like realistically, I think we can definitely say if you're going to own a local comic shop or you're going to start one, you're going to, don't. Fair enough, as someone who lived through the... But if you were going to, count on lots of expenditures and lots of loss probably for the first 5 years.
Oh, at least. And I mean, I don't think this is anything that Walt wouldn't tell you as well, about how the industry works and everything else, which is why the collectability side can be a great way to augment weekly sales. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and that's where the comic books will always have its niche, and I'm not saying collectability out of value, but I'm talking it out of the true definition of the term geek, as like a freak, like someone who has to have a collection and complete everything. That's the collectability that I mean. So having those back issues, giving them a second life, rather than just like the week to week comics that are coming out. And if there's not that market where it's at, there's without another revenue stream, be it games or whatever, it's not something that can compete.
I'll never forget the experience, the feeling I would get, because when I first found comics, there wasn't a local comic shop. Thankfully, one opened a little time after. But I'll still never forget my excitement at buying these Secret Wars, I think number 8, which was the premiere of the origin of the black and white Spider-Man symbiote costume. I'll never forget my excitement at finding it and buying it and reading it right before a doctor visit. And then my excitement when the local comic shop opened, and then I was suddenly on the hunt, because thankfully they weren't quote-unquote wall books, for Secret Wars 1 through 7, so I could understand what was going on.
Dude, it's funny that you bring that up. I'm reading around like issue 280 of Fantastic Four right now. This is John Byrne's historic run on the Fantastic Four, and they did Secret Wars so perfectly. And I wish that comic book tie-in series could be done this way again. Secret Wars, you had let's say issue A of whatever book you're reading comes out. And then it just at the footnote, at the very end, it says, and check, you'll never believe what, where this ended up. See Secret Wars number 1, right? Secret Wars comes out the next week. The next month you get that same comic book, not Secret Wars, the one you were reading before. It's the same issue, the next sequential number. And it's as if all the Secret Wars have already happened.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Isn't that brilliant? And now I'm like, whoa, all this stuff has happened. How did it happen? Now I'm enticed to actually collect this ongoing series as it comes out, not having to like slog through 15, 30 other titles to see what happens in the tie-in, but I'm actually enticed to follow this one storyline because it affected directly, and I don't know how it affected the characters I care about.
Yeah, it was really messed up the way they did it, if you want to consider it. So basically, it was, in my opinion, ballsy move by Marvel.
Yes,
really ballsy
never done,
move.
Nothing like that had ever been done.
Because seriously, they think about what happened to Amazing Spider-Man people. So it did exactly. Amazing Spider-Man was at whatever number, and then it says, and you won't believe what happens next. And then you go to your next comic, and it's like a 3-month time jump, and Spider-Man is in a black and white costume now.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find out for 8 more months.
Yep.
To find out what happened or how all of the story resolved. It was a really ballsy move, but honestly speaking, especially compared to what I seem to remember as Secret Wars 2, it was a really great run with some really great twists and turns, including, let's just say, one of the Marvel Universe's and definitely the Fantastic Four's primary villains not only taking on but stealing the power of Galactus, the planet consumer.
Yeah.
The World Eater. That is just, it was mental. Bit of a letdown on the next step because correct me if I'm wrong, Secret Wars 2 was then basically the Beyonders' adventures on Earth.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So I'm sorry to hear that, but anyway, the whole point being, having a tangible comic is there's nothing else like it. Like, especially, what was that that messed up adult-oriented noir one that you sent me for Christmas? About the bad cops.
Hold on a second. It's Steve Lieber and Nick Spencer's Pretzels is the dog. Mm-hmm. Oh crap. What is it called?
It's okay. It doesn't matter. It is a great thing. And that's the other thing I love about tangible comics is my good friend Trent, who I almost never sent anything to, sent me Christmas gifts. And in them was that. And, it was the same thing with Superior Spider-Man. You re-engaged me with the Spider-Man comic for a while because of that run. And it was the same thing with this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got so mad when that 6-volume compendium ended on very climactic notes. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? Anyway, comics are an amazing storytelling device when they're done right. And I hope it's something that the industry can continue to survive through this from, because I was just speaking with somebody the other day too. I was one of those guys, and I'm sure it was almost every customer that was like this for you, but with your regular customers, for some reason, you don't get this at the barber shop. You don't get that you're a regular customer of. You don't do this at the grocery store where you're a regular customer of. But for some reason, the true comic shop nerd will always feel that they are, I don't want to say entitled, but they have a free pass to go in and just shoot the shit with their comic proprietor for hours on end about comic stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's the different. That's how you know if they enjoy it or not, is if they're engaging back or if they're just listening. Otherwise, you're holding them hostage.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the important part you got to remember is is picking up those visual cues. It's like, okay, well, for some reason he hasn't looked up at this ledger from that ledger for 3 minutes. Maybe the conversation is over. It's an important thing to key in on, I think. Anyway.
It is.
Trent, we've been going for well over an hour and 20 minutes. Was there any quality content in there? I don't know. It's not my job to decide that. It's yours as the consumer. But I want to thank everybody for that joined us on the live aspect of the program, because it's always... That's another thing, too. I don't know why I insist on doing this, but how do you feel about this, Trent? So I recently read an article that said one of the things your podcast should do, because much that Stan Lee taught us that every comic book could be a person's first comic book.
Yeah.
He said that with the beginning of your podcast, you should start everyone off with like a summary of what's to come, wet the beak a little, which we cannot do. Hey, Chuck. Look at you two morose-looking mother truckers right here. Smells like someone bleeped in your... I'm trying to keep it clean. I don't know why. So what do you feel about that? Is that something we should start doing? So we would end it here. But we would still run audio, and it's like, hey, because you already do the lead in with the number.
Well, I mean, if depends on what our product is. If our product is a podcast, absolutely, and that will be easy to do because a podcast isn't live, and then we go back and create an introduction and give timestamps for when we're talking about everything. For a live production of jazz rift chat between two friends, I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, I did. I had a whole list of like tech news to go over, but
there you go. There you go.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Really greatly appreciate it. Please do remember you can go to netheadsonair.com for links to everything about us. You can go to Death Ray Media.
Yeah, deathray.media.
There we go. Go to deathray.media if you want to support Trent. We do also have a Patreon, which I'm going to have a discussion with our patrons there as well. Thank you very much, guys. Your support, your interest is always appreciated. Every single one of you. Thankful you guys like to listen to our particular brand of bullshit, or even just scroll quickly through it. I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
Either way, I feel we appreciate you, even though apparently the patrons are mine and not specifically Trent's. But okay.
Well, I'd like to think that you take care of them, and I'm peripheral there.
Well, Leroy Velasquez says, did Trent just call Netheads jazz? Someone make that a shirt. I think last night I've referred to it as our particular version of vocal jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speed up, beat up. Doot, 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 doot.
I just like saying it because you do that every single time. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, my name is Will.
I'm Trent.
And in the immortal words of the guy that does the announce, we'll be back
soon.
This is NetHeads with Will Wilkins and Trent Hunsaker. Signing off. I know, right? But stop being a little Nancy and deal with it. NetHeads. NetHeads. We'll be back soon.
Goodbye.
This has been a production of Smodco Internet Radio. Sir, only at smodcast.com.
I love the product aspect of this being like a live YouTube thing, a live streaming thing that we then repurpose, because instead of putting the dates, I've tried to be cute by putting titles into place because I just think they sound good in comparison to relative times, right?
Sure.
This whole show, we never discussed the weather, and I titled this Swelter in Place.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a description of what the listener experiences.
Or maybe I should just start putting the dates. Maybe. What do you think? Oh, okay. Very good. Well, that's where, if you want that, then I've got to, shush. If you want that, then I've got to do this. If I get the right one, because often I hit the wrong button. That talk drives my wife nuts, by the way.